All right, welcome. Today we are diving into one of the most challenging and honestly one of the most important ideas to come out of the 20th century. It's a concept that really forces you to rethink what evil actually looks like, not as something monstrous and out there, but as something, well, terrifyingly normal. So let's start with a question. Just picture it in your mind for a second. The person who organized the murder of 6 million people. What do you see? A monster, right? A raving fanatic? Just filled with this bottomless ideological hatred? Well, the reality, as the philosopher Hannah Arendt saw it, was way more disturbing. The man behind the desk, a guy named Adolf Eichmann, was just shockingly ordinary. His most defining feature was, as she put it, a complete lack of defining features. So how in the world did Arendt land on such a startling conclusion? This wasn't just some abstract theory she dreamed up. Nope, it came from her watching one of the most famous trials in all of history. Here's the quick backstory. Eichmann was basically the ultimate bureaucrat of death. After the war, he just vanished. But then, 16 years later, he was captured in this dramatic raid in Argentina. He was put on trial in Jerusalem, and Hannah Arendt, a German Jewish philosopher who'd actually fled the Nazis herself, went to cover it. And what she saw in that courtroom, well, it would change our understanding of evil forever. And this is where things get really wild. At his trial, Eichmann's defense was just bizarre. He didn't claim to be some mastermind of hate. Instead, he basically painted himself as a simple paper pusher, a mid-level manager who was just trying to do a good job. He claimed he had nothing personal against his victims. He was just following orders. So, this defense, this image of an ordinary man responsible for an extraordinary horror, this is what led Arendt to her groundbreaking insight. It was super controversial then, and it's still incredibly powerful today. So let's break down exactly what she meant. Okay, so the banality of evil does not mean that the evil itself is boring or no big deal. Not at all. It means that the people who commit the evil can be terrifyingly, chillingly normal. It's about evil done by people who simply stop thinking. They just accept the rules, they follow the orders, and they never hit the pause button to ask, wait, is what I'm doing actually right? And here's what that looked like in practice. Eichmann's world wasn't about some grand evil ideology. It was a world of spreadsheets and train timetables. He wasn't focused on human lives, he was focused on KPIs, key performance indicators. His job was figuring out the most efficient way to use poison gas, organizing train schedules. He turned mass murder into a series of administrative tasks. And this is the absolute key to the whole thing. For Arendt, Eichmann's greatest crime wasn't just what he did, but the sheer thoughtlessness behind it. He outsourced his conscience. He handed over his personal responsibility to think, to judge right from wrong to his superiors. And that, she argued, was the real evil. Now, let's see how this idea builds, because the analysis that inspired this explainer draws a direct line from Eichmann's trial to the kinds of systems we see in our own world today. Now look, the outcomes are worlds apart, of course, but the underlying mechanism, it's pretty recognizable. The argument is that when professionals in any system, whether it's law or media or corporate life, start prioritizing obedience for personal gain, like getting that promotion or landing a big contract, they're echoing that same thoughtless complicity. The goal becomes stop questioning, just do the job. And that classic excuse Eichmann used, if I don't do it, someone else will. I mean, how many times have we all heard that? That one phrase is such a powerful tool for checking out morally. It lets a person see themselves not as someone making a choice, but as just a replaceable cog in a big machine they can't control. But the analysis goes even deeper, arguing that the people actively doing these things aren't the only ones responsible. The real power that makes a system like this work comes from somewhere else entirely. In almost any unjust system, the number of truly bad actors is often pretty small. The real engine of all this isn't that tiny group. It's the huge majority of people who see what's going on and they just choose to stay silent. This is the absolute core of what's called the structure of complicity. It's the silence of ordinary people that allows the bad stuff to happen and to grow. Their passivity, you see, it isn't neutral. It actually becomes a form of support that keeps the whole system running. So if the disease is a failure to think, then what's the cure? Well, the antidote is actually pretty simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy. It really just comes down to reclaiming your own mind. First, question things, especially authority. Demand evidence. Second, take the time to actually think for yourself about what's right and what's wrong. And finally, and this is the most important one, never, ever outsource your brain. Your moral judgment is yours and yours alone. And this is the final, crucial takeaway from all this. Passivity is not neutral. When you choose to obey without thinking, you're not just a cog in the machine. You're actively supporting the direction it's going. Your obedience is a vote of confidence in the system, whether it's for better or for worse. Which leaves us with this final question, something to really reflect on. In our own jobs, in our own lives, when we're faced with that choice between easy obedience and the hard work of critical thought, which one do we choose? That's the question Hannah Arendt left us with, and it's just as urgent today as it was all those years ago.